the sea lock for the Ulverston canal behind me there, and even though the canal's only 1¼ miles long, it's not the shortest in Britain. That's in Middlewich, but it is the straightest. Back in about 1979, I'd have been about 11 then, and I was in a preparatory school. That's a bit of a mouthful. And they were having a lot of building work done, building new classroom buildings. And all the classes basically took place in this sort of little block of porter cabins, like temporary classrooms. And it was right next to like a tennis court, basketball, five-a-side football, tarmacked area with a chain link fence around it. And we're in the class, and I can't remember what it was, probably something totally useless for later life, like history or something like that. Unless, of course, you're going to go on to get a degree in history, that is. And the teacher, he said one day that he had to pop out for 15 minutes and do whatever teachers do. When you're that age, you don't really know what's going on. And as he left, he gave us a stark warning that when he comes back, he wants us to be as quiet as a mouse, and any signs of disruption or whatever at all, we would all be in for it. That's what teachers are like then. Children were just an occupational hazard of being a teacher. And off he went. And predictably, it's a classroom of 30 sort of 10 to 11-year-olds. It just went ballistic. And there's shouting and sitting on desks and looking in the teacher's drawer, trying to open the stockroom cupboard, throwing things around. And I didn't want to be part of that. I was a very quiet lad. And I'm sort of like, guys, the teacher said we're all going to be in trouble, we need to behave, and it was just basically a case of shut up, Shelley. So, right, okay. So I thought, right, I don't want to be part of this. So I went outdoors. I went and stood outside the classroom, just inside the tennis court area, by the little opening against the chain link fence. And I thought, I'm going to be a good boy, I'm going to distance myself from this chaos, because I don't want some punishment, do I? And I waited there, and sure enough, about 15 minutes later, the teacher reappeared at the other end, and he started walking towards the other side of the basketball court. He saw me standing there, and his face just changed, and his stride, he became very like that, and his face and his eyes were just total rage. And he got near me, and without breaking stride, he just went woof, straight in my face, quite hard. And it was an incredible experience, because it hurt, but what I remember most is that I was stood there, and then I just swang back, hit the chain link fence, and bang, rebounded, and I was bolt upright again. And I thought, my God, I've really seriously annoyed the teacher here. I better not annoy him anymore. And I just turned round, followed him back into the classroom, and quickly went and back to my desk, sat there, feeling a little bit sort of weird around my mouth. And he gave me what was known as a blue slip, which was basically a blue slip of paper, funnily enough, about the size of a cheque. And on it would be your name and the heinous crime that you've committed, and the name of the person you had to go and report to with the slip to receive your punishment. And it was either the headmaster, who was a reasonable bloke, or the deputy headmaster, who was generally regarded as a psychopath, basically. He had some severe issues either in his head or in his life somewhere, but he was not a nice man at all. But fortunately, I got the headmaster, and I went up to see him after the class, Gave him the piece of paper, and he looks at it and, so you were stood outside the classroom, Hare? And I said, yes, sir. Very sorry, sir. He said, why were you doing that? So I said, explain the whole thing. The class was noisy, and I didn't want to receive whatever punishment the teacher was going to give us for creating a noise. And then I explained that I stood outside like a good boy. Well, at least I thought I was. And the teacher came along and he punched me straight in the face, knocked me against the fence. And then no punishment was forthcoming, because I remember the headmaster just went really quiet. And that was it. And I went off, had my break or whatever happened, and then back to the next class. But I seem to remember over the next sort of few days or weeks that the teacher was nowhere to be seen. You know, I realised later he must have been fired. And I never saw him again. Until about 3 years later, when I was at a different school, a secondary school, and we'd all gone off, probably about 30, 40 of us, on a weekend's activity course in the Brecon Beacons, rock climbing, abseiling, which was great, potholing, sleeping in a huge tent. And we were in the tent, massive thing that all the kids slept in a sleeping bag. And I'm like, my God, it was him. He was there. I don't know if he'd been hired as a stand-in teacher to assist looking after all these unruly children. But my eyes saw him and his saw me. And my gaze, my eyes just hit the deck. And I avoided all eye contact with him for the entire weekend. And I get the sort of impression that he probably did the same, hoping I wasn't going to say something to a teacher about what he'd done. But from this day onwards, I mean, he had a huge, long, like, head of ginger, almost red, wavy hair. And to this day, if I'm walking along and a bloke comes walking towards me with the same sort of coiffure, whatever you call it, I almost sort of like, and then I just walk as quick as I can, get past and avoid all eye contact. Git.